Hey everyone, Summerhill Cinema 700 here with my movie review of The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. So I finally went and saw the film yesterday in the theater. It was a great experience because it was my first time back at the theater in almost a year. And the last time I had gone, they were just playing. There was nothing new coming out, of course, and really in 2020. So they were playing some of the older flicks. I once saw the last film I saw, I think, at the theater was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which was really enjoyable. Other than the fact that I got hit by a car on the way there, that was fun. Did a video talking about that. But anyways, went and saw it yesterday. Gotta say, I really did enjoy it. My expectations were a little bit lower for this film because I knew that there was going to be a new director. James Wan had done such a great job on the first two films, and I was a little bit skeptical. But obviously, the new director, I think his name is Michael Chaves, did a really good job. And I think James Wan was helped produce the film, so he was on the set, as far as I know. But yeah, I won't do like a beat by beat of this entire film. But of course, it's following the case of Arnie Johnson, Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, I think was his name, who basically, it's a real story. He became possessed, demon overtook him, and he ended up committing a murder against, I think it was the landlord of this house, kind of, that he lived in or something like that. Some evil power took over him, and he ended up committing this murder, and he had no idea that he did it. But the way that it started in the first place was he basically invited this demon, which had possessed this young boy who was his girlfriend's little brother, I believe it was. So he had the demon in him. He was possessed. He was all, horrible possession. And then he ended up saying, "Take me," and which is a very bad thing to do because, they should have just let the Warrens exorcise this demon out of the kid. But instead he says, "Take me." I guess he feels so bad for the kid that the demon ends up taking him. Well, bad mistake, because once that happens, shortly after, he ends up, like I said, committing a murder. So that's basically what the plot is of this film, is trying to prove to the court that that Arnie was indeed possessed by a demon when he committed the murder, and that he didn't intend on killing anybody. What's interesting about this film, which separates it from the other ones, is whereas The Conjuring 1 and 2 are both haunted house films, this is more of it is a ghost story. It's a story of possession, but it also is like a crime story, right? It's kind of like a police drama because, there's all these scenes in court and whatnot trying to prove the existence of demons and the fact that he was indeed possessed by a demon when he committed this murder. Now, that's kind of the plot. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it at this point, so I'll just give my opinion on the films. Again, I just watched The Conjuring 1 and 2 for the first time last year. I absolutely loved both of those films, especially the second one. I still think the second one's my favorite one in the series. I haven't watched any of the the other ones in the universe, the spin-off films like The Curse of La Lorna or any of the Annabelle films. I haven't watched any of those. I plan on doing so soon, especially the one that I think has Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, which is, I think, Annabelle Comes Home, if I'm correct. Definitely want to check those out. And same with like The Nun. I heard that one's a little bit too much about the jump scares and whatnot, but I'll check them out. So let's just get on to what I thought about this film. I kind of went through the plot. I thought that all the actors that were in this film did a great job acting. Just like the first and the second film. I think everybody was great, especially, Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga playing the Warrens. They do such an awesome job. They're such captivating characters. You just love watching their performances because they play these characters so well, and you can really see that they're just really into the role. But everybody else did a great job too, like Arnie, the guy who played Arnie, the little kid. They find such great child actors in these films. Like child actors or young actors, they do such a great job. These kids, I think the kid that played this young boy in the film was only like 7 or 8 years old. He only might be 10 now. And he just did such a great job. So, all the acting, I thought every single person in the film did a great job. The police, sergeant, everybody that was involved did a great job. I have some little notes here to keep me on track. The film was very atmospheric, just like the other ones. It had this sense of atmosphere, this sense of dread throughout the film. So they did a great job. It was a very atmospheric film. A lot of great cinematography, too. You see cinematography of the surrounding landscapes. There's a lot of, there's at one point they go to this priest's house, and the property that he lives on has like this beautiful waterfall, and it's just, really nice cinematography. Also when they're like walking around in the woods. There was a lot of great flashback scenes as well in this one, like when or when Lorraine, Vera Farmiga's character, is having these flashbacks. She has like these. She's a psychic medium. She can go somewhere, right, and see basically what happened there. Someone was murdered there. She knows where it happened. Like when the police are trying to find exactly the spot where this young girl ended up being murdered, which was caused by this curse. Lorraine knew where it happened, where the body was, and they ended up recovering the body. The neat thing about this film compared to like the first and the second one is, again, I said how the first and the second one were more haunted house movies, whereas this one's more of a crime thriller, but this one also goes more into the occult because we have a witch, and we actually see, in the first two films, you see the possession and you see how the people, demonic manifestation, but what you don't see is, how that happened, why that's happening there. Well, I guess in a sense you do, because, in the first one there was a guy that died, and then there was this ghost trying to, in the second one, yeah, the ghost trying to act like it was something else, like the character of Bill Wilkins. But in the first one, it was a witch or something that lived on the property. So I guess that's not, they do kind of explain that. But this one went more into like, why would this innocent family have this? Why would they become possessed? Because they're just a nice, happy, loving family, and it ends up it's the work of this witch. She's like a satanic witch. She's underground, and she's putting these curses on people. And she just happened to leave this weird satanic kind of altar object thing underneath their house. It's like, it looks like a deer skull, and it's like trying to figure out why. And it's explained in the film that she's not doing it for any reason. It's just because she's evil. And they say, like in the film, a Satanist just wants to basically, have chaos and destruction and hate and death and misery. So that there's no given reason why she did that. But it was interesting how this film dove more into the occult aspect of why someone would maybe become possessed. And you have this character who we end up finding out is actually the daughter of a priest, which is pretty messed up, because I guess as a young child he had so many books about Satanism that he confiscated from Satanists. I guess he figured that it would be a safer place to keep them, just like the Warrens keep all these objects that they find in their museum, because they figure it's a safer place to keep them than the wrong people getting their hands on them. But because this priest had all those things, I guess his daughter became obsessed and ended up reading into them and ended up becoming a Satanist herself. So yeah, I just enjoyed that whole occult aspect and just how it dove into that more. I found that very interesting. Back though to, like I was saying about the cinematography too, another thing that I found that I really enjoyed, it almost had like a Shining feel. I felt that it almost had like a feel of like The Shining. There's one scene too where Ed, it's near the end, he's walking around with an axe. He almost, it's like he becomes possessed. And that had a Shining feel, because he's like limping, because he was injured throughout this film. He was limping, and it felt like The Shining. And then also when they're showing the shots of like the surrounding wilderness and stuff like that, it felt like The Shining, and they have this like ominous music playing, just kind of like when they're going up to the Outlook Hotel, motel or whatever, and that terrifying music's playing when they're driving up. That's how it kind of had that feeling. So maybe there was some inspiration from there. I really enjoyed that. So, we've gone over the actors. I thought it was great. Very atmospheric film. This one went more into the occult. Onto the soundtrack. Soundtrack I thought was really great. Of course, this film's set in 1981, so they have some films that were coming out around the time of that era, as well as, they had the original soundtrack that they made for this film, kind of like that classical score, was really good. I don't know if it was the same composer who did the music on The Conjuring 2. I don't know if The Conjuring 2 and The Conjuring, the original, had the same composer, but the guy who did the Conjuring 2, there was a special feature on the DVD and Blu-ray about that. He did a really great job, great composer. So I don't know if he did the music, but the music in this was really good. Again, there was an original soundtrack for the film, and then they also had some songs that were around the time of that era. Like there was a Blondie song, I think it was Call Me, and then also they had an Eddie Money song. It was Baby Hold On. And then there's at some point too, they're in the car and they're playing an Elvis song, which of course was before when this film is based. But it's neat because we see flashbacks to the Warrens' past. But we'll go through over that in a minute. Speaking of the era that this film was based in, I think they did a pretty good job of capturing that era. And I find a lot of times now films that are set in the past, they don't do a great job of capturing that. And it could be for one of two reasons. I think there's two ways that, if you want to capture a time in the past, you either have to be there and have lived through it, or watched a lot of films that came out around that time. So you can see things like, you know, what was popular at the time, the way that people dressed, the cars, the fashion, the way that people were, right? Of course, in this day and age where people are walking around staring at their phones like zombies, it's a lot different than the way the world was back then. So I think they did a good job of capturing the era of 1981, early 80s, just like the other films did a great job of capturing the 70s. The story, again, like I mentioned, the story itself is very interesting. It's very compelling. Of course, it's based on a true story. You have to take that with a grain of salt, though, because of course it's a Hollywood film, and they're always going to add more stuff to make it enjoyable, to make it, more entertaining for audiences. But I highly recommend checking out, the real story about this. And you can go to there's an official YouTube channel, the Ed and Lorraine YouTube channel. And what I'll do is I'll leave a link down below, and there's a segment with them, I think from the early 2000s, where they explain the actual case of the Devil Made Me Do It case. I'll leave that, and definitely check out that channel, because I think it's their son-in-law, I believe, Tony Spera. He runs the channel now, and he is in charge of taking care of the Warrens Occult Museum, which is still in existence today. It's just that I don't believe the public are allowed to go and visit it anymore as they used to be able to. Sadly, I think Lorraine passed away 2 years ago, and then Ed, it was quite a long time ago. But Tony Spera does a really great job of keeping their legacy going. So definitely go check out their channel, the Ed and Lorraine Warren official YouTube channel. I'll leave a link down below, like I said, with the interview, them talking about the actual case that this film was based on. But yeah, very interesting story. And of course, again, I think it was the only time ever in history where the devil was actually put on trial, simply because the judge himself was a man of faith. Another thing that was really nice about this movie, right, and I think a lot of people will agree, that the Conjuring films, even though they're horror films, a lot of it's kind of like this nice love story between Ed and Lorraine. And what was nice about this film is that we saw a lot of flashbacks to their youth when they first met. I think Ed was an usher at a movie theater or something like that, and then they ended up falling in love. So you see all these flashbacks to them when they were younger. I presume it's probably in the 40s. And it's just really nice to see that, these flashbacks to them when they first met. And they're kind of like, there's a scene when they're in the hospital. Ed, throughout this hospital too, he's injured. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he has to take these pills and stuff throughout, and he keeps forgetting them. But there's a scene where he's in the hospital and Lorraine's sleeping by his bedside, and the priest is like, you can go home if you want. I'm sure he knows how much you love him, but you need to get some rest. And then she explains, how they met and how they've just been side by side the whole time, and how, they're basically, anyways, they love each other very much. And it's nice to see that. You see more of their past and how they first met. So I really like that aspect. It was kind of a sweet story. Something too from the original story, from what I remember hearing about the original case, is that at the house, when the kid became possessed, there was this toy dinosaur that he had. And in reality, apparently the toy dinosaur actually started walking around and stuff. I really kind of wish they had added that to this film. But then again, it almost would have seemed goofy in a movie, right? In reality, that would be terrifying. But if you see this dinosaur walking around in the movie, it might be a bit corny. So that would have been interesting. But of course, they can't always fit the everything that actually happened into a movie. Otherwise, it would be like a 25-hour long movie, because this case is so insane. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was fantastic. Everybody that was in it did a great job acting. It was an atmospheric film, as I've already mentioned. So for the most part, I'd say that I really did enjoy this film. Again, I think I liked the second one the best, then the first one, then this. And like I said before, I haven't watched any of the other films in the universe. So I will check out those. So, if The Conjuring 2... the original Conjuring, I'd probably give a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. Conjuring 2 would be a 10 out of 10. This would probably be a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. It was a really good movie. I enjoyed it. And it's, I'll get onto a couple of cons here quickly. But for the most part, compared to anything else that's coming out these days, I thought that this really excelled at, it was a good movie, good story. So overall, very enjoyable. All right, so as great as this film was, there was just a couple things that I thought maybe they might have been better off leaving out. Of course, one of the things that's so great about the Conjuring universe, at least the first two films, is that they don't rely too heavily on CGI or insane jump scares all the time. Because James Wan's a very old school style director, where it's more about the story, the atmosphere. This film was a little bit more about the jump scares, but it still wasn't, insanely excessive as most horror films coming out these days. It did have a few that was like, okay, they probably could have left a few of those jump scares out. But again, compared to most things coming out this day, it wasn't that bad. So, maybe a few less jump scares. This one did have more CGI than the previous two films. But still, I think that they did a lot of practical things in this film as well. Like there was a couple scenes that I can think of, like when they're in the morgue and that the dead person comes back that's all like big and bloated. I'm pretty sure that was CGI. I could be wrong because in The Conjuring 2, like that tall man character, I thought that was all CGI, but that was actually like this super tall, skinny guy in a suit. I'm sure some of it was CGI, but most of that was practical, which I was surprised by because it looked like it was computer generated. So this might have been an actual person in a suit, but it looked pretty computer generated when it was like running around. I thought that part was a little bit over the top. Then also the part where Lorraine nearly falls off the cliff. It was just like, okay, that's a little bit much. And all of a sudden it felt like a James Bond film or something. But still, again, those are the only things that I have to say really negatively about this film. For the most part, I really enjoyed it. It was nice too at the theater because there was only 2 other people in the theater because, this film's been out for a few weeks now. So it was nice seeing that. It made it more creepy because, the theater was relatively silent. And definitely seeing these films in the theater is a whole other experience. I hadn't seen either of the first ones in the theater, the first or the second one, but seeing this one in the theater makes it a lot more creepy, that's for sure. But yeah, besides those few things, I thought that this was a really enjoyable film. There's not a lot coming out these days that I will go to the theater to see, but yeah, I say bring on more Conjuring films. I definitely love, the characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and again, I can't stress enough how great everybody was in this film. And just Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, their chemistry together when they're on set and when they're doing these films is just so great. They play these characters so well. So I really enjoyed the film. And it's nice to be living in these times. It's good times to be alive because the Conjuring universe is just they're such amazing films. The 3 Conjuring films at least. I have no doubt in my mind that in 20 or 30 years from now, these films will be looked back as stone cold classics, just as much as like films like, I know this will be controversial saying this, but films of that era, the haunted era, the 70s films like The Omen and, even like The Exorcist and The Sentinel, all those types of films. I think that in 20 or 30 years, I have no doubt that these will be looked back as classic, absolute classics. They're so great. They're so well done. And yeah, so I really did. I enjoyed The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. I'm probably going on way too much now. But again, check out the link below. I'll leave it so you can hear the real Ed and Lorraine Warren tell the real story that this film's based on. But I want to hear from you. What did you think of this film? Did you enjoy it? Did you dislike it? I want to hear what you guys thought of it. Definitely let me know. So thank you very much for watching this video, my review of The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. And last but not least, remember, when this movie comes out, go buy it on Blu-ray, go buy it on DVD, support physical media, and support your local movie theater. All right, take care.